My name is Lisa Silvestri. I am associate teaching professor in the Communication Arts and Sciences department at Penn State. And I wrote this book, Piece by Piece, Risking Public Action, Creating Social Change.
A lot of people are really interested in creating social change, especially in our current political climate. How can people create that social change in their communities? What are some things that they can do?
I think you said our communities, and I think my impulse was to say to start literally within proximity. So local, um, what you can like kind of touch and feel. And so like one of the things that I've found myself doing, especially as we were allowed out of our homes back into the world post pandemic, is like trying to become a regular where I live. So like I go and get fish every Thursday from the local fish store. I go to the farmer's market every Tuesday, even in the winter when they move it into the fire hall. And so I see the same people and they expect to see me, and there's this relationship, you know? We don't have we don't participate in as many of the social institutions and structures that we used to. I was um feeling a bit of the taste of isolation that we would collectively later feel because I was living out west and there were wildfires at the time, and I was also a new mother. New parenthood is usually an isolating experience, but in this case, I was homebound because of a city ordinance. You weren't allowed to go outside because the smoke was so bad. And so I'm in my house with this newborn, and, you naturally start thinking about your own mortality and the future, and now you have this little human that you're responsible for, that you invited here. And so I mean, I had a bit of a panic, and I thought, "Surely there must be some good things happening somewhere." And so I crowdsourced, I cobbled together an email of all the, like, most kind of creative and poetic and, world-changing types of people that I knew and just asked them, like, "Can What's going on?" And just small scale, these didn't have to be, like, TED Talk level change makers, just anyone in your personal life, and, sure enough, they did, and it kind of happened like that, like a snowball sample where, people just started once you focus on the good, you start seeing more of it.
And I think that you talked about the kind of the TED Talk. People often have this, like, high-minded vision of, like, I have to do something that's gonna be completely
Yeah.
earth-shattering, and, but, none of the people that you did, while what they did is impactful in their communities and for the people that they work with and, that kinda thing, but, there's this concept of phronesis that you
Mhm.
talk about that is maybe, like, the thing that is certainly in them that sort of inspires this change. I wonder if you could talk about what that is and the extent that it is in all of us.
The theoretical framework kind of holding this book together is this ancient Greek virtue of phronesis, or practical wisdom. And practical wisdom is that capacity to discern the right course of action in a given situation, the course of action that would, of course, uphold the noble values, like toward the greater good. And the ancient Greek philosophers, like Aristotle, believed that we all have this capacity, just like all the character virtues, that we can develop this, we can learn, and, kind of embody it. And so I was really wanting to kind of explore or do like some sort of archaeology of that wisdom. I think right now, maybe some of us are thinking of that serenity prayer, like that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can accept, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's the last piece, the wisdom to know the difference, that maybe gets the least play and the least exploration. And so this book in some ways is trying to study the people who had the wisdom to know the difference, and had the courage to go ahead and change the things that they could
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Let's talk about a specific example.
One of the folks in this book is a professional paper maker, which I didn't know that that was a thing until I met this person. But evidently, um, paper is made from old textiles and fiber. So, like, the notion of rags to riches comes from the idea that money used to be made out of rags. Even my parents, so like not long ago, remember a rag man coming to collect rags, and it would go to the paper mill. Of course, now our paper is made from trees. But from this old process, you would take like textiles or sell it, this fibrous stuff, and beat it to a pulp. There's another, we get that idea from that. You beat it to a pulp and you turn it into paper. And so this one young man was a art major at Buffalo State, and he took a paper making class and, had great fun with it, and didn't really consider it as like any sort of, like, he wasn't thinking about the social implications of the work until he went home over a holiday break, like our college students do, and he came upon a box of his late father's old ephemera, so, like, old photographs and letters, and in the box was a pair of his dad's old blue jeans. And, in this paper making class, he's thinking to himself, "Oh, what would it be like to turn this into paper? Ma, can I do it?" And his mom's like, Whoa, so you're gonna cut it up and break it down, and you're gonna take this thing, that's so near and dear, and turn it into paper." And, she relented, and she said, "Wouldn't it be great if you could kind of redistribute that pair of pants across the family?" And that's exactly what he did. He turned it into like a memory book of all of his father's old things and handed it to his siblings. And most remarkably in his case, he gave it to his father's brother. And that had such an impact on his father's brother that he realized, "Oh, wow, this is more than just a process of making paper, that this is a transformative experience that could help people, like, reimagine some of the hardship that they've experienced." And literally, like, breaking something down and turning it into something new breathes new life into the thing. And so from there, like, that experience in his 20s, he made a career out of these paper making workshops and working with communities like, veterans who are back from war, people who have suffered sexual assault and trauma, students who experienced school shootings, right? Being able to take the clothes they wore that day and transform it, gives them some sort of agency or power over what happened to them.
And so map that story onto the phronesis concept. How do those two things fit together?
Yeah. So phronesis, again, is that capacity to discern the practical course of action. And sometimes it is born out of an experience of epiphany. And so for the paper maker, that moment with his uncle, realizing how profound that experience was for his uncle, kind of gave him that, like, aha moment, not thinking like, "Gee, I could make a career out of this," but, there's something to this. And, what would it be like to try to expand that experience and multiply it? And so one of the things I do at the end of this book is offer this tripart mode of inquiry. And the first step is contemplation. What is going on? So first kind of becoming aware, being open enough that you're open to receive these moments of epiphany, potentially. The next is interpretation. So what do I make of this experience? Is this something that I feel like I wanna lean into? Maybe this is that moment of discernment, that wisdom to know the difference. And then imagination. What's possible? Like, say I do lean into this. Like, what could be done and who do I need to bring together and that's when you kind of can start the exciting, like, I'm on my toes getting ready to act.
Mhm.
And going through that process of contemplation, interpretation, imagination doesn't necessarily guarantee that action will result of this practical wisdom process, but it definitely gets you in the position to be able to do something that is ultimately phronetic.
So the title of this book, which you so nicely held up earlier, is Piece by Piece.
Yeah.
How does peace fit in here, and does what we've been talking about require a different conception of peace than it's sometimes stereotyped as?
Yeah, this book marks kind of a turn in my scholarship because I had been writing about war for more than a decade. And I think part of my writing about war was really because I was fascinated by peace and the possibility of peace. And peace is so creative and imaginative and I think that's what's exciting about it is because often wisdom like peace is something that we don't recognize until after the fact. Um, and I think we typically only think about peace in its relationship to war. We think of peace as the absence of war. That's not how I consider peace. Peace is a positive condition, one that is a condition of flourishing or thriving. It's not the mere absence of violence. And so, what we should be doing is always striving for peace, which is those conditions that promote human and planetary flourishing. If we're only striving for the absence of war or ceasefire, that's not setting the bar high enough.
Lisa, any final words you'd like to leave our YouTube audience with?
Buy the book and go out and find what you are meant to be doing here and make the world a little bit more livable for those around you.